At any rate.
At any
What
rate.
At any rate, that is that is a lot of
Yes.
options for rates.
That
And
is
what-
precisely the point of the expression, though.
At any
Right.
rate.
Because the rate is completely irrelevant to the discussion.
So does it
No matter what the rate is, this fact that I'm about to state remains true.
Mm-hmm. I didn't
Does it
realize.
matter the unit of the rate? Like,
Not whatsoever.
sure, I guess that would.
The rate of the union. The rate of the credit union. That'd be a question for Andrew.
Probably. But he isn't here, so.
The rate of the Runrin. Rutro. Rutro Reggie.
Raggy.
Is there anything, do you think Scooby-Doo related we could eventually do an episode on? Just for fun? Like a
Not
Halloween
really.
episode?
No.
I enjoy
There is
a good episode of Scooby-Doo every now and again.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Scooby-Doo is like just very, I don't know, just simple, fun, formulaic.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of, it's good as is.
Yes. There's really nothing transcendental to pull out of Scooby-Doo.
It's just good fun.
Yeah.
Maybe for
It
like
is
a
leisure.
maybe for like a Halloween episode we could do like The Sixth Sense or something. We could
Sixth
Watch
Sense
it.
is good. I should
We do
reread
Scooby-Doo and the
Dracula.
Boo
We can talk
Brothers.
about that.
I actually want you guys to watch that at some point.
Yeah.
It was very formative in my sense of humor.
I see.
yes.
And I quote it really, really frequently.
There's gonna be random moments where I'm just gonna be like, wait a minute.
Riley says that all the time.
All the time.
Literally, anytime anyone says the word headlight, get it? Headlight. Because there's a scene where one of the ghosts' heads like explodes and turns into a light,
Uh-huh. There you go.
or inflates, not explodes.
Oh, a little different. On the radio, I heard an ad today. I don't know why that reminded me, but I heard probably my favorite euphemism for a joint on the radio in an ad today. So it's for different CBD products. So they had CBD gummies, smokable CBD, and I forget what the other ones were, but it was just like, wow, smokables, huh? That's what you're calling them now?
Uh-huh.
And then when I got home, Andrew and I were our roommate were messing around, and we are like, I'm
My
not
replacement.
yeah,
His replacement roommate.
the holdover
The one that shares a name with James's future brother-in-law,
and Nathan's current brother and
who may or
future
may
brother.
not be the same
His-
person.
his once and future brother. But he's like, we were like, I'm not a stoner. I'm just other-minded. Okay, Mom. But yeah, smokable CBD. It's like it's not weed though. It's just CBD and it's medicinal.
Of course it
So, at a dispenser near you. I can't wait to hear the like the different indie weed dispensers talking about the big medical marijuana companies and how they're corrupt and all sorts of different things, just like big pharma or whatever, big medical marijuana.
You would think they'd be more chill about it.
Yeah,
You'd think,
you would think.
but who knows?
Nobody knows.
The trouble
Nobody knows.
She's a bass.
The trouble I've seen.
I think was it Netflix had Airplane? No, not well. That's Spaceballs, but
The reference was from Spaceballs,
Right.
yes,
right.
but
Yeah. Spaceballs. It was on either Prime or Netflix recently. I kind of want to rewatch.
I don't think it's been on Netflix for some time. I know we watched it somewhere like a couple of years ago, but
Yeah, it wasn't
I
that
can't
long
remember
ago.
where.
Well, I think it was on. I think Dan had it on DVD and we watched it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Mhm.
So, the other movie I wanted to rewatch. There's a bunch of movies I want to rewatch. It's just been like not been long enough to really justify it.
There's a couple of them I want to rewatch for the sake of the show, but
Yeah.
we just haven't got around to it. And some we need to watch in the first place for the sake of our show because one of our 2 listeners still wants us to do an Aquaman
Oh, yeah.
episode.
I'm down to watch it whenever you guys want to. Well, we could stream it maybe or whatever. Riley just had to find time to watch it. Aquaman.
That's the kicker right
The
there.
Water Boy. We'll have to watch The Water Boy and be like, here's a
You guys
review of
haven't
Aquaman.
My mama said alligators are so ornery because they got all them teeth, but no toothbrush.
The Water Boy is one of those like heartwarming quote unquote sports movies that I'm told is pretty good. I need to watch.
Aren't
It's not heartwarming at all.
aren't like most,
It specifically makes fun of the heartwarming sports movie.
Okay,
There you
then I
go.
feel like I'd probably enjoy it.
I'd probably enjoy it.
Like as a
I feel like
spoof on the sports
It's Adam
movie genre.
Sandler.
Oh, okay,
It's Adam
yeah.
Sandler.
Yeah, you're right.
I feel like sports movies in general are either comedy or like inspirational. They only come in 2 flavors.
Yeah, and I've only
Because sports in and of themselves aren't enough to keep one interested.
you have to watch fictional movies about sports. Like I remember watching
No.
Angels.
I mean, like, if you were to make a fictional movie about sports, just
yep.
making that about sports would not significantly differentiate it from actual sports,
Yep.
and thus would be rather boring to watch, as opposed to real
Yes.
sports.
So it makes sense.
You have to add something else
Right, there has
around
to be a
it.
story to tell.
I remember Angels in the Outfield, and I forget how old I was when I watched it. I think it was maybe 9 or 10. So it was funny to me then, but that was like the one time I ever watched it.
I remember watching it. Moderately funny, theologically flawed.
Right.
But-
Yeah. Obviously. But I don't know if I'd enjoy it now. I feel like if I was maybe in a room full of kids, I'd enjoy watching it. It's like one of those movies where it's like I wouldn't really watch it by myself, but if I was with somebody who I think would find it entertaining, like the fact that they're enjoying it would make me enjoy it.
Sure.
Not rewatching, but playing. Well, Nathan's rewatching Ocarina of Time while I play it. I started that last night
On the
GameCube.
GameCube.
And
Yeah,
so
the
far so
GameCube
good.
version I have.
Having played as the number of Zelda games I have, there's a lot of things that I like. I was just talking to Nathan about this a little while ago. We were like I've played enough other Zelda games that we can kind of trace back all the influences on the later ones back to this ones. So I'm kind of familiar with how to play the game and what I need to do in different situations. And there's a few instances where it's kind of old and janky because new 3D, like, rotating your camera, you have to press a button to do that instead of a second stick. Little things like that. But so far, I'm actually really enjoying it. I've only barely gotten into like the first act of the game.
Yeah, he met Princess Zelda and got the mission to go to Kakariko, and that's where
Oh, yeah.
I went to bed and he stopped playing.
Spawning the images in the chat last night.
That was...
I deleted an old. Somebody had a username kick me in,
because it was on the memory card I
And
had
so-
from home.
and so I deleted that one and replaced it with kill me, so I could start a new game. And like I just sort of did that because like that's a name I'll occasionally do is like a sort of faux pas depression meme. If you're depressed, get help. This isn't a joke. No. Anyway,
But some of the
Just
dialogue
listen-
lined
yeah.
up a little too perfectly.
yeah, like especially like with the Deku tree, the Deku tree, Deku. With
Since he was dying anyway.
yeah,
for
in
one
the game
time.
he dies. So I was just like, huh. Everyone I meet begs for death.
Of course, when you said that in the chat, I brought up, well, his mom had to give him that name. Imagine his mom saying that on the day
We
he
don't
was
see
born
his
and
mom
the
or
name's-
his dad in this game.
Link just came to be.
You never see his parents. You see his grandma
You see his uncle in Link to the Past.
and his grandma in Wind Waker.
And his grandma in Wind Waker. He also has a sister in Wind Waker.
That's true. That's true.
There may or may not be some clarification about Link's heritage later in the game. Get there when you get there.
Mm-hmm. Well, because like, there's the whole deal where they're him and Zelda keep reincarnating over and over again.
Right.
But I mean, like,
I have the 3DS version of Ocarina. I would love to play the original someday.
Yeah, it's not bad to play on GameCube.
From what I've heard, the GameCube version isn't the smoothest emulation out there of it. Particularly rough with Majora's Mask, but it's what we got. It's what you're working with.
Yeah, I'm getting used to it.
Because finding N64 copies in this day and age is nearly impossible.
In the current year, yeah.
Yeah.
In the current year.
I mean, they just re-released Mario 64 for a 35th anniversary, and Zelda turns 35 next year.
You never know.
You don't.
Well, it's only a limited time offer for the Mario ports
which
for
is
Switch, which
very,
is
very
bothersome.
dumb.
Why
Very,
would
very
you
dumb.
do a limited time if you could sell?
To get people to buy it. Artificial demand.
I guess.
Which
isn't really necessary because Nintendo has plenty of actual demand to
it
begin
doesn't
with.
stop them from doing it anyway.
Yeah.
In fact, actual demand creates shortages that create another more artificial demand.
Yeah.
Well, it's not artificial, if it's that. Whatever.
But and then Hyrule Warriors.
Yeah, that was announced. The Hyrule Warriors game about the Breath of the Wild before times.
Yeah, what happened before things went down?
It's
like in Breath of the Wild.
Right. It tells
Do
us.
we get to play as all of the champions who failed?
Yep. It's like a Dynasty Warriors styled game, but like set in the prequel 100 years before. Well, when the calamity struck and before Link almost dies and goes to sleep for 100 years, kicking off Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. Which, if you want to listen to that episode, check it out.
We recommend it. It's a good game. It's a good episode. So.
Yep.
Not sure if the
I kind of want
Dynasty
to play
Warriors spin-off will merit its own episode, particularly not in the same way as Breath of the Wild. But I'd play it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It looks like a fun time.
Especially as an addendum to... Is that the right way to say that word?
An addendum?
An addendum.
An addendum.
An addendum.
A brewery. Brewery is
An
tough
Brewery?
Brewery Rain.
Eminem?
That's how he got his name. He was trying to say an addendum.
An addendum to the anemone.
An addendum to the dodendron. in the humdrum.
A rhododendron addendum.
Rhododendron addendum.
And an M.
It
That's
sounds
my
like
name.
an indie band name. Rhododendron addendum.
You know what?
That sounds like a Harry Potter spell.
Actually,
It does. Yeah.
it's like it confuses other people's speech. That's the effect of that.
No,
spell.
it confuses trees.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, good stuff. Well,
Started playing Undertale yesterday.
oh, you did?
Oh.
I did.
I think I'm going to try to play it this week. We have a friend's wedding this weekend, so that might cut into that.
Hey,
No, it'll be fun.
You could start tonight. I don't mind you taking a break from Ocarina.
Yeah. You don't mind.
But so far, vague first impressions without spoilers for this guy.
I haven't gotten very far at all, but
Okay. But like within the first 5 minutes, it really sets a tone.
yeah, I really enjoyed the rock.
The Rock is awesome. Dwayne Johnson makes a cameo.
What? You wanted me to stay there?
Jeez.
Okay. I mean, you're awfully demanding, but I guess I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah, I intend to play it. So if we wanted to talk about it next week, or whenever,
Or whenever.
whenever we get around to finishing it.
It's the first time I've ever actually put like a concentrated effort to do something before we do a podcast. I think because usually we talk about something I either
And then you
nothing.
binge it
nothing
afterwards.
Yeah, like with Avatar, I was in the middle of watching it when we did our episode.
You weren't very
Like I think I was
dedicated
mostly
to watching
through
it,
season 1. But
but after you figured out
um,
how brilliant it was, you just slurped
So
it right.
fast.
I had. Well, no, at that point I was employed, so I just really felt like watching Avatar, which was it's a good show. I liked it a lot. But we're not talking about those things today.
No.
We're the Plating Papists. I'm James.
I'm Nathan.
And I'm Riley.
We are talking about something we have attempted to cover in a different medium in the past to very little success and a lot of headache. BioShock. The game.
A game that all three of us have played.
Yes.
So it's first of one of those in a while.
And one of us playing through it ridiculously derided and mocked all the way through. It's like imagine a video game boot camp with 2 drill sergeants making fun of you all the way through the game, but without telling you
sometimes
to do anything.
3. Sometimes 3.
Sometimes three.
Yeah, sometimes 3.
Or sometimes just making golf commentary over your hacking exploits.
James has published those
Yeah, it's on
videos
YouTube.
that we did for that.
If you look
so
up,
if you wanna listen to us torture James for like several hours, it's on the YouTube.
It's on the internet.
Quality's inconsistent because we are learning how to do this stuff for the first time, and it honestly, I mean, I learned enough to the point where we have the current podcasting setup we have and have managed it thus. So it was a good experience in that regard. I will say my filter is not turned on for this playthrough. If you find it on YouTube under our former name, same icon as our podcast, Pox Bobies, BioShock playthrough, those are the only videos. It's like 8 episodes, roughly around 10-15 minutes each. Like the different varying video quality because technical difficulties and updating your graphics card.
Varying
that sort of thing.
Commentators because of scheduling.
Yeah.
And
And this
stuff.
is like 8 hours worth of footage I managed to break down into about an hour worth of actual content. So you're welcome. It's like distilling maple sap. You get like a pint out of like several gallons. You get a little bit of syrup.
But we're not here to talk about
syrup. We're here to talk about
our
BioShock. So if you want to watch me struggle through the game,
we will
to
probably
the gleeful
allude to
commentary
things.
of Riley and Nathan as I turn up the difficulty.
Oh yes.
Go ahead and give it a watch. But yeah, so
In the
BioShock.
meantime, BioShock.
where does BioShock the story begin?
In a plane? Well, actually, it begins before the plane.
Right,
The
but
game
you-
starts in a plane that
Yep.
crashes in the ocean. Then you swim to an island in the ocean with a...
Suspiciously close to an island in the ocean.
I mean, you don't realize it's suspiciously close because it's a video game tutorial.
Yeah.
So.
There's a lighthouse
There's-
just sitting there in the middle of the ocean.
The
Lighthouse-
opening cutscene is a bit from Andrew Ryan talking about how great Rapture is,
Oh,
right?
yeah. It introduces...
That says you're
important.
going into the elevator thing into Rapture.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're right.
Right. Because you go into the lighthouse and you go down an elevator and you watch this little informational video by a guy named Andrew Ryan who's like, "Shouldn't a man's work be his own? No, says the man in the Vatican, it belongs to God. No, says the man in the Kremlin, it belongs to the people. So I made Rapture so we could have a perfect society of free minds and artists.
Yeah.
And
scientists."
libertarianism.
Just
Like
yeah.
raw, unhinged, laissez-faire libertarianism.
And so you go into this underwater city
Called Rapture.
Called Rapture. You show up.
Not BioShock.
Yeah.
No, BioShock is not the name of
it
the
takes
city.
place in like the 60s at some point.
I think.
It's like
I thought it was more like the
thought-
50s.
like-
50s, 60s, somewhere in there.
Maybe even the 40s.
That was
but-
late 40s, early 50s.
But yeah, it's got a very,
Regardless.
it's like sort of Art Deco stuff, early Cold War era type aesthetic.
Right. So you go into Rapture, and immediately things
It's
do
an
not look
underwater
right.
city.
It's been billed to you as a paradise by the guy over the TV, but
In the
you-
elevator.
first thing you see is there's like basically zombie people running around zapping each other.
Mm-hmm.
First thing you do is you get call on a
You
radio.
go to a vending machine and get drugs.
Yeah, you go to a vending machine and get drugs.
Mm-hmm.
You inject yourself with superpower gene editing things. You grab a gun and start going around.
And a wrench.
And a wrench. I
Why don't you grab a crowbar or something? There's a
bear.
man named
Atlas.
Atlas. Yep.
He's talking to you over the radio, and he's like,
The Irishman.
"Oh, hello there. Would you kindly help me out and get my wife and kid from Ryan, who's trying to, stop me because I lead rebellion or something like that."
Mm-hmm.
And so you explore. You discover creepy diver suit men called Big Daddies and
Or
tiny
big
little
bad
girls
boys.
with like extraction needles trying to get genetic material from like the dead bodies, and they're like
The little
brainwashed
sisters.
little sisters. And so you got the Big Daddies are like their bodyguards.
Mm-hmm.
And that's creepy, so you keep going. And you go throughout the game, just kind of fighting guys and learning more and more about the world and the lore and the characters involved.
Picking up different weapons, different abilities. Turns out those drugs you took enable you to manipulate stuff like electricity, fire and water and ice and all sorts of stuff.
And bees.
And bees. Not the bees. And you can use these on your opponents or to
You have
traverse the world.
You have genetic super abilities. You're a walking gene bank with weird superpowers.
And so you navigate through Rapture, trying to track down Atlas's family for him
Who
so
end
they
up
can all
blowing
escape
up.
together. Because you realize pretty early on, once you get into Rapture, oh, this is bad news. I need to get out of there. Why you don't just turn around and take the bathysphere back out? Or does that spider splicer just...
We'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
We'll
Well,
get to
We
Anyway,
will
get
actually get to that because
Yeah,
first
that's
thing
true.
that happens is Atlas asks for your help.
Yep. So you so you make your way through Rapture. You think you come right upon Atlas's family in a submarine getting ready to escape, and then Andrew Ryan, who's like the big bad of the place,
The guy that created Rapture.
he's like, who
He's
the heck
kind
are
of like a Stalin figure.
you? Yeah.
Like
After
he's
a
created
fashion.
this utopian place where everyone can live out their political ideal, free of impingement by
Imagine
anyone else.
libertarian Stalin.
But
you have Andrew
he
Ryan.
still fundamentally runs the place. So
Yeah.
he's in charge and has a great deal of power and influence over things.
And he has like different rivals that you run into in the city and whatnot. So he's like, he kind of gets wind that you're in there making a mess of his city, and that's already a mess. But
Yeah.
plowing through his underlings and whatnot. He's like, who the heck are you? And so he tries to rain on the parade and blows up the submarine with Atlas's family on it and sends his goons after you. So Ryan is
Atlas is understandably very mad about that.
And he's all like, would you kindly go and kill Ryan for me because that's what you got to do.
so you make your way through Rapture.
Yeah, you meet more characters on the way. There's like
Yeah.
the doctor lady who...
Oh
He's
yeah,
trying to help
Dr. Tannenbaum.
Yeah, Dr. Tannenbaum, who's like, you can save the little sisters if you want to, but you can also harvest them for their genetic material so that you can
Called Adam.
have more points to spend on your upgrades.
Yeah.
Which
There's Adam, and then Eve is like the plasmids that you use.
it's
Eve is the resource that powers your use of plasmids.
Yep.
and Adam is what unlocks more slots for your plasmids and upgrades and
Yep.
stuff. It's a biblical reference in case you didn't
Yeah.
catch that.
Yeah. Yeah, so you make your way through Rapture, and then you meet like the theater dude. What's his name again?
I forget. He was weird.
He was weird. He was pretty messed up.
Yeah.
But, like, that-
Aloysius O'Hare wouldn't be displeased with us
Mm.
because that's his favorite area.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that guy. Yep.
Yeah, that guy.
That dude.
Yeah, the other guy watching him play through it. In
Yeah.
the YouTube series.
Rip boy, Iowa boy. Anyway, I'm trying to remember that guy's name.
I mean, we can look up the guy that was the boss of Arcadia.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't.
It wasn't
Arcadia,
that.
was
That
it?
It wasn't Arcadia. That was the
That was Fort Frolic.
Fort Frolic. Yeah.
Um.
Because you go around Fort Frolic taking pictures, because you get a camera by this point, which is used for things in the gameplay. You take-
Investigation.
Yes.
Research.
But this guy tasks you to go take pictures of his rivals that are dead, and he's all like, "Oh, how beautiful!"
He has
they
this thing for
are."
turning
It's weird.
Sander Cohen.
Sander Cohen.
Cohen. Yep. That's the guy.
He has this thing for turning people into plaster.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And posing them dead.
He's got
He's like the crazy art guy.
He's a thespian crazy art dude who's a little not right in the head, but
More than a little.
yeah, it's I want to take the ears off. It's sort of a aside, I guess, to the main story. I guess it kind of shows you a little more of like the craziness of Rapture and what's going on, but it's an interesting stop along the way, nonetheless.
And I think each area more or less has a couple main characters like that you come across, or just hear about in the data logs scattered across the world in like little tape recorders.
Mm-hmm. As you go through Rapture, trying to track down Andrew Ryan and kill him, you run into different henchmen of Andrew Ryan's, and you sort of slowly piece together, how things came to be in Rapture, and kind of how things fell apart and devolved into the chaos you now see
Because
before
it
you.
turns out his political ideals don't actually work in practice.
Mm-hmm. And
Anyway.
he has a rival named Fontaine, who's kind of disappeared, and that got people all up in arms.
Right.
Um,
But then you get to Andrew Ryan, his office. He's got a little putting green, and he's all like, "Oh, you're finally here to kill me for that Atlas fellow."
a man chooses, a slave obeys.
And it's there that it's revealed that in that little cutscene that you were like, well, it's implied at first and explained later by Tannenbaum.
Yeah, because
The
go
character
into a
you
few
play
rooms.
as is like this brainwashed guy who
was-
is engineered to respond to the phrase "Would you kindly," and
And it's
just follow
implied
that
you're Andrew
order
Ryan's
blindly.
long lost son.
Okay,
That was what I gathered from it.
I guess I hadn't put that together.
Yeah. Because you see like these weird little flashbacks over the course of the game of like Andrew Ryan and this lady in love.
I guess you do.
I
I had forgotten.
unless
about
I got that mixed up with Fontaine, I can't remember. It's I'd have to go back and look. But anyway, so you were engineered and like programmed, to obey commands, and the trigger word being "Would you kindly?"
And so Andrew Ryan's like, a man chooses and a slave obeys.
Would you kindly
kill me?
Mm-hmm.
And so you watch your character. You have no agency at this point because you've been given an order.
Mm-hmm.
And you watch your character just kill Fontaine.
Mm-hmm.
They're not Fontaine.
Andrew Ryan.
Kill Andrew Ryan. Fontaine comes up later because turns out that's who Atlas was.
Yep. He's really good at impressions. He's like, yeah, that whole Atlas thing was a ruse to get you to get rid of my main rival so I can take over Rapture. Now I'm going to go get all jacked up on plasmids and Adam and become the big boss of the town.
You get help from Dr. Tannenbaum to reverse your brainwashing a little bit so you don't respond to Fontaine's "Would you kindly" later.
There's a whole sequence, too, where that kind of messes with your ability to use plasmids. And so like you randomly get assigned a plasmid that you can only use for a certain amount of time and until the
I
effects
thought that was a neat little
of the
sequence.
potion wore off. Yeah. It's kind of a neat little sequence. So now you're trying to track down Fontaine and try to stop him from taking over Rapture and causing all sorts of chaos.
And you're also, yeah. That's kind of how it goes. You eventually need to get help from the Little Sisters, so you basically become a
because
big daddy.
They pull Adam, which is like the genetic altering material, out of dead bodies and whatnot. So you kind of need their help to do that with this dude.
Mm-hmm.
So you finally meet him in this room where he's getting all jacked up on Adam and stuff, and you have to fight him to take him down. Boss fight of the game.
And that's where the game ends.
Yep.
And the ending cutscene will change
Based
depending on whether or not you decide to save the Little Sisters.
Or harvest their Adam.
Or harvest their Adam.
Mhm.
Which, if you're playing it with any amount of integrity...
For the record, I saved the Little Sisters. That's how I chose to play that
He
game.
did.
They weren't just random NPCs in an open world game.
And so, if you save all of the Little Sisters, the ending cutscene implies you help them back to the surface. you kind of become an adoptive father to them, and you
give them a
have
normal life.
a family. You live a normal life.
And something I didn't really realize, and we'll get into like the aesthetics of the game, but like something I didn't realize until we started recording was like your character has tattooed chains on his wrists.
Yep.
Oh,
Or at least the one wrist that you can see.
Yeah.
I guess
I
I
don't
hadn't
know.
picked that up. That's a neat little symbolism. You should have. That was like a clue that was there.
Yeah,
the
because
whole
like in the
time.
back of my mind, I was like, "There's got to be some significance to this." But then, like, I just never thought about it until just now. I was like, "Oh, a man chooses, a slave obeys." Yeah.
Yep.
So that was sort
Full
of
of
a
little
mark on
details
you.
like that. It's actually really well put together.
Yeah, and you find out that all this time you had been a sort of unknowing sleeper agent for Atlas to use in the surface world or whatever, and Fontaine brings you back and causes a plane crash, so that you can
You
come
have to
and
come back and help. them.
and help him take over Rapture. So yeah, that's kind of BioShock in a nutshell. There's
Basic plot.
yeah.
We will elaborate on the things that are worth elaborating because there's a lot of things to elaborate about in this game.
Mhm.
That's why we did an episode on it.
Yeah. So where do we begin?
Well, for one thing, one of my favorite things about the game is how the story about the character that's brainwashed and has to follow orders is baked into the game mechanics.
Yep.
Because we're, as people who play games, we're used to a tutorial character telling you where to go and following it without question. We're pre-programmed almost to do so. There's a giant arrow
kinda meta.
floating in the middle of the screen that you follow. It's in the top middle.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, having this game have themes of self-agency and do your choices matter, or do you not have a choice in the end because it's because it's other people. All of that, the themes that it explores due to in those areas are reinforced in the gameplay. And I always find that to be very cool.
Oh, and Atlas made up the whole thing about his family. They weren't real. Anyway.
Yeah.
Also, kind of the whole deal, it shows that, like, you weren't completely, like, a man chooses, a slave obeys. You find out that even though you still had that mental programming, you were still able to make the choice whether to save or harvest the little sisters.
Right. So there are choices that do matter. And in the end, at the end of the game, those are the ones that matter for them.
Well, there's this whole sequence, too, where you put on the armor and suit of a Big Daddy to fight Fontaine.
Mm-hmm.
And so that sort of symbolizes you becoming like the new protector of the little sisters by taking that on.
So yeah, and you're doing that because, I mean, in the story you're doing in the game you're doing it because Tenenbaum tells you to. But in the story, it's kind of like at this point the character has made this decision to become their protector and stop Fontaine.
Yep.
I don't know what happens if you choose to harvest them, but I assume you just
everything else
get
happens
jacked
the
up
same.
and fight Fontaine on his own terms,
And get a
more or less.
sad ending where people die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the little sisters still happen, but then like it's implied you sort of forcefully take over Rapture and, unleash its terror on the surface world or whatever. I think that's the bad ending. I don't think there's a neutral ending. I think it's just a good or bad ending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when I played through it, I got the good ending, and so out of curiosity, I checked out like the other endings because I didn't feel like replaying the game again. It was stressful for multiple reasons, not just the
because
commentary, but also like the
it.
logistics of all that stuff. And that whole project took us like a year. Like we started playing and recording, and like because we were still all like in college and doing different things, like we could only record once every so often, and sometimes that would turn into months or whatever. But anyway, kind of aside. Go watch it if you want to. So yeah, any other things before you dive into the transcendentals?
Dive, get it.
Rise back to the top.
Because it's underwater. Anyway.
Just whales doing whale stuff.
I mean, a lot of the stuff that there's to talk about do tie into the Transcendentals in some form.
Yeah. As commonly happens with these things.
Right. But other cool stuff. I mean, the gameplay's fun in it.
Yeah.
And it encourages experimentation with different plasmids and different playthroughs and stuff.
I played the remastered version, which is, it's the same game, just kind of updated graphics.
HD facelift.
Yeah. But yeah.
I haven't played any of the other BioShock games. Just the
I haven't
first one.
either. I have access to them. I think I might own. No, I have access to them because
I've
Riley
played
owns them.
2 briefly.
I think in 2
Infinite.
you're a big daddy.
So yeah, it's like the ending escort mission, but that's the entire game, from what I've heard.
And then 3 is
the
BioShock
third one does something
Infinite.
different.
BioShock, yeah, it's very different and applies the sort of formula of BioShock to a world in which it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So in BioShock 1 and 2, you're in Rapture, and it's kind of a dog-eat-dog world. You need to, be indiscriminately looting at all times just to stay alive.
Mm-hmm.
If you aren't scrounging for every last scrap of money and bags of potato chips that you can find,
well, when you're on
you will
normal mode anyway.
You will not survive.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of same gameplay pattern is used in BioShock Infinite, but this is in like a utopian world in which you're just killing random people and looting their houses for no reason.
Yeah.
Everybody's just doing fine. There's like some
So
subversive government stuff going on, but in general, like nobody has lost their minds like they have in Rapture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that being kind of disjointed.
I've heard good things about the narrative and the gameplay and such, but
and different aesthetic qualities thereof.
yes. So I intend to play it at some point. But
Yeah, it's not
For sure.
very high on my priority list. Like I intend to play it at some point too, but it's just something where it's like I have other games I want to play first, kind of a thing. But I enjoyed playing BioShock, the original. So I guess now we can dive into the transcendental. So truth. What are some elements of truth we can pull from BioShock as Catholics? Ayn Rand bad.
Ayn Rand bad.
This game does talk a lot about that, the philosophy and government. And
Yeah, the
stuff. It brings up a
philosophy
lot
of Rapture and BioShock is very much Ayn Randian and kind of a commentary on the flaws with that sort of outlook.
Just this absolute rejection of religion, of political oversight of any sort, really, and what
sheer
that,
economic autonomy.
yes, and how that gradually devolves into complete chaos because there's no governing body to step in and say,
maybe
"Hey,
we
look,
should
you guys are
regulate plasmids."
you guys are killing each other with these things. Maybe we should put a stop to that."
Plasmids. Oh, the other thing too is like plasmids are what slowly drive people insane because you're altering your genetic makeup, and so that causes things to go all sorts of crazy.
But the fact that people are doing it voluntarily means that Rapture will not do anything about it. Well, this is just the free market playing out.
Yep. If people want to dive into chaos and kill each other, then what do we care? It's freedom for you. There's little references to like Ayn Rand stuff, like Atlas Shrugged is a famous kind of it. Like the books, from my understanding, are kind of a similar thing where like all the smart, quote unquote, smart people in society, like the Elon Musks and the other peoples like that of the world, all form their secret society away from normal civilization so they can be the best and brightest and people can leave them alone.
And
That's kind of how that goes.
Named Atlas in this game is definitely a reference to that.
Yeah. And Andrew Ryan isn't an Ayn Rand. It's not a perfect anagram.
It may be. It's not a complete anagram, but it's quite. I think someone put something forward like that, some theory. I could look it up, but there's definitely something there.
And in the
Hi,
end,
Mike.
it's Andrew Ryan's conviction about his moral high ground that ends up killing him.
High ground!
It's his choice. It was his choice to die a man chooses, a slave obeys. He tells you to kill him, and that's his choice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like this. It's his own
With
philosophy
with
that
the golf.
ended up
Is there any
his
significance to being
undoing.
killed with a golf club? Not really. It's just an instrument.
I mean, there might be something I'm missing, but I don't think it's much more than.
It was a foreshadowing of Last of Us 2. The whole golf club death thing. Anyway, that's all I know about Last of Us 2. Yeah, I guess any other elements of truth. Well, sort of like, despite all this chaos and death and craziness, the whole choice of like whether or not to spare or harvest the Little Sisters kind of highlights the value of human life.
And that even in this dark, desperate scenario,
Like
there
where
is
people
a
have been
choice.
like to a large degree seem to have lost their humanity nonetheless.
Right. There is that choice.
Yeah.
And that's something that even if you're doing a lot of things situationally, in the game, you're forced to do a lot of things situationally, because how else are you going to respond to a bunch of guys with knives in their hands climbing on the ceiling after you?
Mm-hmm.
But even in that darkness and chaos, you can make good choices and be a better person than that. You can rise above and save the Little Sisters, which
Yep.
this is leading into goodness a little bit, I suppose.
Yeah. Any other elements of truth, I guess, before we drive in, before we go to the next point?
I guess I would say that even if you are, in some ways coerced into making certain choices, there are choices that you make that still matter.
Uh-huh.
So you don't be a victim of circumstance. Try to grab hold of your own destiny, as it were, and make choices where you have the capacity to do so.
Yeah, because like there's the turning point in the game where like, your ability to choose is like freely choose is given back to you, and that's kind of a turning point where you have the opportunity to make things right depending on how you're playing the game.
That could kind of be represented by you're regaining control of your plasmids after you drink the juice.
Mm-hmm.
That's again, the game design and the storytelling merge, and that's the cool thing I like about video games sometimes when they do it really well.
Yep. Cool. Yeah. Goodness. It doesn't on the surface appear to be a whole lot of goodness in the game.
Right, you're in a very, very broken and crazy world that just wants everything dead.
Yeah.
But again, the choice to save the Little Sisters, you have that choice. You can choose to value human life, even if you're wasting it by the dozens by necessity.
Yep. Basically, every case is a case of self-defense. Except for when you sneak up on a splicer, as they're called, and freeze them and then whack them with a wrench a bunch of times and they fall apart. It's kind of a violent game.
I mean,
It is
A shooter after all.
It is an M-rated game.
Mm-hmm. Bit of swearing.
A bet.
then
Particularly
there's a lot of
when you're
games.
James playing it.
Right. But, I mean, scripted swearing. Like, actually spoken voice lines. Not just me.
Right.
There's some horror elements to it. But I guess this goes more into the beauty. Like, in terms of, like, aesthetics.
And aesthetically, it's a really nice game.
It's dark, but very well put together.
Yeah, the
It's
theming
very
is-
oceanic vibe to it. Right from the opening cutscene, there's this ride in the bathysphere through the
Which is an
through the
ocean elevator,
ocean.
basically.
Yeah, it's an ocean elevator, and you see like this whale and all these schools of fish around it. Just
And this city that's submerged in water, kind of glowing, almost
it's-
mythically in the middle distance.
I don't know about mythically.
Not
I would
mythically.
say.
What's the
more
word I'm
like,
looking for?
retro
like a-
sci-fi.
Yeah,
Yeah.
retro sci-fi aesthetics. Yeah, Art Deco
Just the-
style is everywhere.
This weird juxtaposition of very modern sort of technology with very 1940s looking things.
Yeah, because it was like at the start of it was sort of advanced compared to contemporary stuff because Andrew Ryan, despite his kind of insanity, is kind of a smart person, and there's some scientific advancements that people get ahead of them.
And I think juxtaposition is a good through line through this film, or this game. I don't know what that is coming over me. Anyway,
you haven't been doing any plasmas, have you?
No, I know.
You haven't been to BioLife in a while. Wait a minute.
No. But all throughout the game, you'll be running through the ruins of the city, and occasionally you'll go past a shop window that has a record playing, and it's like
some happy 1950s jazz.
Yeah, some happy-go-lucky 1940s, 1920s even crooner tune. It's like, well, this is
an interesting
ironic
juxtaposition.
And it's, it's good old classic music, but it's in this context when you have, just such darkness all over the place.
Yeah,
it's really kind of chilling.
Or like at the one point where you're listening to orchestra music while you're fighting a bunch of bad guys in the in the theater.
Oh yeah,
at Fort Frolic.
Yeah.
Trying to remember.
And some of the way the splicers are dressed is very much like they went to sleep wearing their 1940s clothes, and then they woke up
wearing masks, like party masks and stuff like that.
Yeah, like masquerade masks, just wearing them around.
They all talk like Cockneys.
They don't.
Well, some of them do.
No, they don't.
Some of them do.
Yellow always happen. That's like the two guys at the beginning that are trying to get you, but.
But then there's some areas like isn't Arcadia the
sort of the forest biome place? The greenhouse place that supplies the oxygen.
That's a really nice looking environment.
And it's kind of interesting from a world building standpoint too, because they have all these trees that supply the extra oxygen because they're underwater.
And it's this again weird juxtaposition between like the grass and the plants and trees that have reclaimed this space and like the artificial structures they were planted in.
Yeah, and it's got this kind of neon lighting scheme in addition to this sort of
probably one of the darker areas is where you're going through the facility that the Little Sisters were being conditioned in.
Yeah,
it's got very much
great environmental world building.
Yeah, it's got like creepy 1950s unethical psychological study vibes, which I think they were definitely going for because.
And they have like the Little Sisters drawings on the walls of the rooms, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just and they're the stuff they were going through.
It's kind of nuts because like if you go back and read about some unethical psychological studies they did back in the 50s, like psychology was like a fairly new thing back then, so it was just trying out a bunch of stuff. I was like, oh, this kind of messes people up. Maybe we should have higher ethical standards. So it was an odd kind of unsettling groundedness to like there's even though like there's some fanciful elements in sci-fi and whatnot, there are things where you can totally see human nature, well, not human nature, but like fallen humanity definitely being capable of this sort of thing.
Oh yeah,
we've seen worse.
It's a grounded universe. It's not like realistic.
No,
but it's very grounded
like
in
if
reality.
Granted,
if you know what
granted,
I mean?
like that if these conditions exist, then you can totally see people acting this way without checks and balances on themselves.
But yeah, visually the game is really well put together.
The gameplay is kind of fun. You're juggling back and forth between like guns and different weapons you pick up and like your plasmids that give you different combat abilities. You can throw bees at people and zap them with lightning or light them on fire.
And I like the outside the box thinking you can do sometimes with the environment and the plasmids, and then combo that with the whatever weapon works best in that scenario. Set up traps for guys. It's fun.
One thing that's kind of useful is like these things that allow you to sort of take over a big daddy and have him fight for you.
That was so fun. You throw the pheromone ball or whatever at him.
Sir.
He was getting in our way.
Yeah.
The whole time. It was funny.
It was funny. Like I needed to get rid of one. So I just like set up a bunch of like zappy tripwires and had him walk through them. Different. There's some sandboxy kind of elements. Not true sandbox because it's kind of linear, but like
But very open to experimentation.
Yeah.
And kind of allowing your own personal play style to shine through.
in a lot of ways, it's a sort of spiritual successor to Half-Life that way.
It's more directly a spiritual successor to System Shock,
Right.
which I have not played, but if it's anything like Bioshock,
Which a
it should
certain
be a good
person
time.
spoke extensively about while we were playing
Right.
Bioshock, but yeah,
But I mean, the modern campaign FPS is very influenced by Half-Life anyway.
yep. Like in the reference at the beginning, why don't you pick up a crowbar or something and you grab a wrench? But it's not a direct ripoff, but it's pretty similar.
It's your melee weapon.
Yeah. Unity. What do parts reveal about the whole?
Well, we were saying earlier, it's got the whole Art Deco vibe to it. So
Yeah.
visually and thematically, the whole world is very united around the architecture, the art, the
It's sort of a
vibe of that era.
art and or science and freedom alone aren't enough to make man rise above his faults.
Yeah, and that's actually kind of reflected in the like very 1950s modern architecture that has fallen into chaos.
It was all
right?
modern and forward looking, and look at all this stuff, but then it's like falling apart. Like this is sort of
It's
a
all
facade.
a facade.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then the very cohesive
Jukebox in an aquarium.
Yep.
That's the uniting visual principle of BioShock.
Yeah.
Jukebox in
But
an
I-
aquarium.
There are humans in a fish tank.
Is it a human tank?
Yeah, it's a human tank where the fish watch from outside.
Right.
'Cause it's underwater.
Exactly.
Like that doesn't really factor into the game. It's just kind of
No.
interesting.
But I think the other big uniting thing is, well, one of the thing I talked about earlier that I really liked was the uniting of the story and the gameplay, the choice and the discussion of what choices mean, and the way that was implemented into the gameplay and the narrative.
Yeah.
And,
It's very much like Andrew Ryan's driven by modernism.
right.
The idea there's no intermediary between me and what I want, my salvation as a person. And even God, like leave God out of the equation, that sort of thing. If you want to hear more about modernism, just listen to Clerically Speaking or whatever. They talk about it a lot. It's Americanism, that's their big thing. And modernism.
They talk about modernism a lot. I don't know that I necessarily agree with Father Harrison's definition of modernism, but that's a subject for another time.
Yeah.
But
It is the one thing that I disagree with him on.
Oh, spicy.
But yeah, I think it's interesting how they decided to tell a story and then built everything in the game around the concepts and themes of that story. Even the tiny visual aspects that you don't notice, like, oh, there's a tattoo of a chain on this guy's arm.
Mm-hmm. It's like foreshadowing. It's I feel like this is kind of a theme in games that we really like, or games that really integrate the gameplay with the story.
Games that we find worth talking about because they do that well.
Yeah, because they go that deep with their construction and how they're, how they are crafted by the artists that make the games.
Because that's the point where games become a really legitimate art medium.
Yeah. Yep. All right.
This isn't transcendental at all, but I did want to point out how much I love the vending machines.
Oh, yeah.
The circus of values.
And then there's
The Ammo Bandito is my
Yep.
favorite. Muchas gracias, senor.
And then, the different.
We didn't talk about the hacking minigame.
Oh my gosh!
That's James's
Because-
favorite minigame.
Because there's really
Hacking-
nothing transcendental about it. It's the
No.
hacking. It's
It's
purely
just fun.
gameplay. But it was also really fun to watch James
It's
fail
purely
at it.
raw panic and visceral emotion, is what that mini game is. It's
For
apparently you
James.
hack things by moving around pipes in an electronic object.
Because
It was probably not electronic in 1945. It was probably analog.
I guess. I don't know.
Just saying.
It's you do a lot of it You don't have to do any of it per se.
No.
Yeah.
It's
But
definitely an
you-
option if you want to make
You're
the
cutting
turrets
yourself
your
off from a lot of
friends.
resources if you don't. Is that something that's in BioShock 2? And
I think it's in
Hacking?
2. I don't.
I don't know.
Anyway,
it's kind of an iconic mini game.
Well, it's basically a game that was on like old like Windows 95 computers.
Oh yeah.
There was like a Pipe Dream, I think it was called.
Oh
But
sure.
it was just that mini game.
So it's kind of
It's like the moving. You had sludge coming in through
yeah.
a pipe. and you
Imagine
had to line it up.
Minesweeper, but you had to move a slowly moving thing through the minefields instead of
Or sometimes not so slowly, depending on how you
Yeah.
line it up.
yeah.
Very fun.
Cool stuff. Well done.
Well then,
Another episode in the books. Number 31, I believe.
I don't think that a podcast would work well on a book.
No.
At that point, it would just kind of become an essay.
Yeah.
that's another one in the hard disk, boys.
Is that what mommy blogs are? They're just like written podcasts. No.
That's what all blogs are written podcasts, and all podcasts are spoken blogs.
But you can listen to our spoken blog on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or YouTube Music, or whatever. Follow us on Twitter at PalletPapist when I remember to post. Also Facebook at that same handle. You can email us at thepalladiumpapist@gmail.com if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or suggestions for content.
Or complaints. You always forget to say complaints.
And complaints. If you have any complaints. I mean, you can email us. I might read it. I might not. But we'll see.
Or one of the two of you could text us personally.
Yeah. You know who you are. And if one of the two doesn't have a whole lot to do right now. Well, that's not necessarily true. But stuff happens. So, yeah. Well, thanks for listening. We'll catch you guys next week on the Palladium Papers podcast. Later. Bye.
Bye.
See ya, cats around the milk bowl.